Let's reflect once more on the life and legacy of Desmond Tutu, with the former CEO of the Desmond Tutu Peace Centre, Nomfundo Walaza, is joining us now via Zoom from Cape Town. Nomfundo, good afternoon, and thank you very much for taking this moment just to reflect with us and our viewers about your experience of this man, man that I called the other day on a global giant. And everybody's calling him an icon and inspiration. But you worked with him at the Peace Centre as a CEO for quite some time. But I also know that in terms of your faith, you're an Anglican as well, which means you were exposed to him as well in the religious sense. I mean, for you, what stands out about Desmond Tutu?
Yeah, Dan, thank you very much for inviting me. I think what stands out for me is his courage. He was a courageous man of God, a peacemaker, a man who spoke truth to power in a way that was consistent. I mean, he didn't waver. A man who really, really loved prayer. I mean, I worked with him very closely, so we would always, when he was in the office, pray every morning. And also loved to instill in us the importance of taking a break when you're working, not to work all the time, but to take a break, like have tea. And then, you know, when he was there, would have tea twice at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and then at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But really an educator in the way that I would say it in isiXhosa, umfundisi, it's a person who teaches you. So we learned so much. Every time he went overseas to any of the meetings with the elders, he would come back with stories that just were amazing in terms of us learning as young people at the time, and just you know, realizing that there is somebody who's out there not only representing this country but representing the world and telling the world, because that's what he said about the Peace Centre. He said, I'd like the Peace Centre to be an organization that tells the world that we're family. Such a simple notion of family, but a profound way in the way that we look after each other and in the way that we relate to each other, whether we're black, white, yellow, green, blue, that we are family. So those are the things that come to mind.
Yeah, I saw when I was just doing a bit of quick research before this interview that you and him were part of a program called Facing the Truth that was done by the BBC in terms of the conflict in Northern Ireland, and that brought to the fore the commonality in human suffering. I mean, what was your experience with him going through that program, helping the people of Northern Ireland?
It was extraordinary. I mean, I remember that he would start at the day because we would meet with the perpetrators and the victims, and he would pray in isiXhosa. And at first I was kind of, you know, I was wondering what it was. And then he would say something like, this is the only language that God understands. And there would be laughter. So a moment that was very tense would then be diffused. And also, I think the way that he shows up in a way that he can be emotional in spaces was also something that I experienced. I was holding that space for victims and perpetrators as a person who's trained as a clinical psychologist. And it was wonderful to see that he also relied on me. He wanted somebody like me to be part of that program, because he realized very importantly, and I think this is what happened also with the Truth Commission, that if we didn't have the mental health response to the Truth Commission, and that process also needed somebody just to be able to hold people as before they were able to encounter each other, and also afterwards if they needed to. But he also himself as a priest was able to do that, but appreciated what I was bringing into that process as a person who's trained in the way that I am.
Yeah, and nowadays, I don't know how you respond to people who criticize the role of the TRC in our recent democratic history as we're trying to heal from the pain, the deep wounds of the past. But you were a part of it as well, and you are a clinical psychologist, I understand, by qualification, and you assisted survivors of human rights violations during those hearings. How do you respond to such criticism?
Well, I mean, I think that we all understand that the Truth Commission was not going to be a finished program in 2 years. I mean, this country is huge. And also there were 20,000, 22,000 people who appeared, victims who appeared before the Truth Commission in a country that has got, at the time, I think nearly 55 million people, and the majority of which are black, and the majority of which were hurt and maimed by the apartheid system. And my recollection was that, the Truth Commission did the best that it could at the time. There were certain things that, we, for instance, I was part of a group of women who asked for the gendered response to the Truth Commission. We asked for women hearings because we believed, or we felt that at the time, that women were appearing before the Truth Commission talking about their experiences of being raped, sexually harassed, sexually molested, in a context that was not designed to be holding that space properly. And, the Archbishop allowed that actually to happen. There were women hearings, which was wonderful. So the criticisms, we all know that it wasn't going to be finished. Okay. But the criticisms, I would have appreciated if people would probably have approached him and talked to him about what they were feeling about what they felt he had done wrongly, so that he can answer for himself.
Yeah, Nomfundo, I've run out of time. My producer, Simon Stevens, is telling me that in my ear, but I need to ask you this before I let you go. How will you, having worked closely, young person as you were, as you said earlier, with a giant like this man, whom we're now going to be burying this coming Saturday, how will you remember him? Very briefly.
I remember him as a man who taught me the power of prayer, and also that I should be consistent, and as a peacemaker, I should not dilly-dally and go this way and that way. And also a man who taught me courage.